Hey guys! Well, it's long overdue. Everyone has been asking me about my Folger Tech FT-5, and the one that I bought last March is the R1. It's been replaced by the R2 now, but I wanted to do a video talking about my build, what I thought about the kit, what I thought about the instructions, and basically the entire printer itself. A lot of people have been inquiring with me as to how does it compare with other printers that I have? Is a CR-10 a better investment than the $499 kit? I have a lot of notes. Let's chat about it. There's a lot to talk about. Hey guys, it's Paul. I'm back. Sorry there was a little bit of a quiet spell there. I was kind of down with a sinus infection, so when I was doing videos and playing them back, I didn't quite sound like myself. But we're back now. So here's the beast, the Folger Tech FT-5 printer. First, let me be clear about the printer. I bought it with my own money. And number two, this is my review, my opinion. I don't have an axe to grind. I am just sharing with you my thoughts on this printer kit. So with that settled, let's move on with the FT-5 R1. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this version of the printer is no longer available. It's been replaced by the R2. The R2 changes a few things. It's different. I believe it's 24 volts now. We no longer have melamine. We're now dealing with aluminum composite material, which is aluminum with, I believe, wood composite sandwiched in between. Also, there's instead of individual two belts, two motors, I believe now they have just one motor driving two belts, which should make moving the Z up and down a little bit easier than it currently is. Okay, so let me give you a few specs on the printer. Essentially, the print volume for this printer is 300 by 300 by 400, which breaks down to 12 inches by 12 inches by 15 and 0.75 if my notes are correct. The list price for this kit is $499, and it comes with pretty much everything that you need. The only thing I did not have was a part cooling fan, which is a little odd, but there's several out there on Thingiverse that you can use. It does come with the aluminum heated bed, and pretty much everything you need to build this is there, minus the tools. So this printer is equipped with an MKS 1.4 control board. It also has dual Z-axis. It also has, up on the printer here, you're going to see that there are dual Y-axis as well too on each side. It's using a linear rail for motion. What I did is I did a few things on my build that are a little bit different from the stock build. Some of those were necessary after the fact, and some of those were by choice. One of the things I did by choice was I went with a 713 maker gantry, which is the X piece over here. I also am using the 713 maker aluminum extruder mount so that I can use it with my E3D Titan Aero. That Aero is also using a pancake motor instead of a stepper. It's a little bit lighter, so we're trying to keep the print head as light as possible. So let's talk about the kit itself as it comes out of the box. There's a lot of pieces. Let's start there. If you're hoping for something that you can quickly unbox and start building, that's not quite going to happen because there are baggies and baggies and baggies of small screws of varying sizes all thrown together in one. Maybe that's done to save money, maybe for convenience, but as the builder, and something that kind of annoyed me was it literally took an hour or two to sort all this stuff out. Also, there's a lot of different size M3 screws, and if you're not really familiar with the metric system, a 10 and a 12 can look an awful lot alike. Thankfully, there are some guides that you can download and print. The Thingiverse has a really good one where what you can do is you can put the screws in individual containers, and what you'll do is you'll determine how long they are. Because essentially what you want to do, whether you're using egg crates or if you're using various tool kits and such, you want to organize all those parts and pieces for the build. Now let's talk about melamine. It's pressure board. We've all dealt with it. If we've put together entertainment centers from online catalogs or inexpensive furniture, we all know what melamine is. It's really great for putting together once, but over the long term it kind of crumbles and it's not a lot of fun to deal with. This melamine, when you first get it out of the box, and again, they don't make this kit anymore, but if you happen to obtain an old kit, it's black and grimy and covered in cutting oil, and you definitely want to wear gloves and prepare to wipe this stuff off because it's not a lot of fun to work with. Now, one thing I noticed is I became active with the Facebook group early on to get a lot of tips while waiting for my kit to arrive. And as you may have seen in previous videos, I bought several upgrade pieces ahead of time because not only did I want to have everything I needed for this kit, but there were a lot of people that were building these things. They had made suggestions how to make it better. And among those was, for example, these brackets for the frame itself. Decided to do away with the melamine and went with aluminum. I happen to get these on Adafruit. I mean, these are pretty standard, 2020, bracket pieces. I can't remember how much I spent on them. I want to say they were, a couple bucks a piece, but I was definitely glad that I had upgraded to these guys because I didn't want to deal with any more melamine. And of course, they're a whole lot of fun. I mean, it's aluminum, so, blast it with some primer, blast it with some paint, and boom, it matches whatever color scheme you want the printer to be. In my case, I wanted orange because of course, PV8. So I kind of already lamented about the whole, taking the whole, the screws and everything else, getting those all sorted out. The kit makes use of a lot of T-nuts. They're not the higher quality T-nuts that I've seen for some other stuff that I've built in the past. So one of the issues I was having with this, once I made sure I had the frame all good and square and started moving up to other things, the T-nuts were quickly becoming a problem. Some would catch just fine and some would just kind of pop loose. I don't know why that is. I don't know if they're inexpensive pieces, but that's been the bane of this printer's existence to date now. I have certain areas that have vibrated loose, and of course, once that screw pops out, the T-nut is now bouncing around in there, and unless I do a complete dismantle, I can't fish that out. An annoyance, but it is what it is. So we're talking about building this thing. Let's talk about one of the biggest problems this kit has, which has been the assembly manual. I have mentioned to others who wanted to purchase this printer to go to the website, download the PDF. I'm sorry, it's not even a PDF. It is a PDF, but it's a Google document. And take a look at it, read it, and see how it reads to them. Because the first round of the manual that I had when my kit showed up was using low resolution photos. And that wasn't a whole lot of fun to deal with because you're trying to zoom in and looking for any kind of details. And of course, a lot of these pieces are black, so good luck. Now, to their credit, they have upgraded the instructions, and now they're using CAD drawings. The kind of things that I had with my Ultimaker kit, for example. A lot of really good screen captures, good resolution. So if you needed to zoom in for better details, it was there. So I'll give them a thumbs up. They did make the manual better, but as you go through this build and get into the world of the electronic side of this thing, I found a couple areas of conflict. I found that sometimes I leaned heavily on the Facebook group for a lot of information, but one of the problems was that sometimes what they were describing in text didn't jive with what they had in the pictures. A real problem, but a lot of people, we managed to get through it with some support from the Facebook group as well. Now, there's a couple of known issues that people had mentioned in the Facebook group as well. Hasn't happened to everybody, but it's happened to a number of people. And that is that this power supply is pretty much heavily taxed just handling the basic functions it already has without the heated bed. There are some people that had, when they used the MKS connections to heat the bed, some of the boards had scorch marks. They had, done some damage to their boards. And that happened definitely more than once. You can certainly search the Facebook group and see numerous scary pictures of connectors that have melted because either there was an issue with the board, an issue with the power supply, or quite frankly, sometimes, with the builders, probably they didn't get the connectors, completely stripped and seated just right. So you really can't 100% fault the kit for that because there's a lot of variance between how people put their connectors in, but there was a lot of people that had this issue. There was enough that I decided to go with a MOSFET. So what happens is this MOSFET, which cost me $20 on Amazon, what this does is this handles all of the power operations for the heated bed. So the MKS board no longer has to handle that. It just sends a signal out, it goes to the MOSFET, and then the MOSFET powers up the bed. And to date, I've had no issue with that. Another thing a number of people have posted about and had issues with was the wiring. Now, I had seen so many posts about broken wires that I had decided to buy chain flex from iGus. My thought was, if this many people are having problems with broken wires, I certainly don't want to wire this thing, twice. So I bought it, but I wound up not using it because, in fairness, so far, of all the issues I've had with this printer, I have not had any issues with broken wires. I am using the stock wire that came with it, which is silicone wire. I'm using the chain guard that came with the printer as well. And knock on wood, so far, none of my issues have been related to wiring. So my stock wiring has worked so far. Another item that several people had mentioned on the Facebook group was getting airflow into the electronics bay, into the back of the printer. The kit itself comes with a small, it looks like a 40 or 50 millimeter CPU fan, and that's just about all it gives to get air circulation going through that entire electronics bay, which once you stuff in all these wires is pretty darn tight. So what I did is I heeded some advice that others had suggested, and what I did is I cut a hole in the back and I put a 120 millimeter case fan back there. So there's a tremendous amount of airflow on the stepper drivers. Actually I 3D printed off the Ultimaker, basically some fan grids so that the wires, won't get chafed. And on the back, I put one as well too, so that, no debris can be picked up by those, fairly powerful fan. So that so far has worked very well for me. The electronics bay itself is a little bit of a rickety device. I've seen some mods where people have made some better electronic boxes, but what I have, it's bouncy, but it works. I mentioned 713maker.com earlier. He makes some really good upgrades for this printer. The only difficulty is reaching him, because I know right now he's going through a growth spurt with his company. He's moved from one shop to another. He makes really fantastic stuff. Due to the popularity of this printer, I think he's still queued up for a lot of stuff, but he does make, he makes a better bed. He does make some other accessories that basically replaces a lot of these melamine pieces to make for a much more solid printer. I'm hoping to hear back from him at some point. Maybe this video will motivate him to contact me. I don't know. But he does make some really nice upgrades that does remedy a lot of problems that this printer does have. Okay, so we covered the build and a couple of the trouble spots that I had. So let's talk about, now that's been all together. Now I did a couple of things that made this harder on myself, in fairness. Of course, by using, didn't use a stock nozzle, didn't use a stock extruder that came with it. And of course I had the 713 Maker stuff, so I kind of had a little diversion from the actual build path. But I've been pretty happy so far with the fact that the Aero has done a pretty good job. The challenge has been trying to find a good part cooling fan that will work with that setup. And there's actually 2 or 3 on Thingiverse that work fairly well. Again, because you've gone to the experimental route a little bit, your mileage may vary. But for me, and again, I can link them in the comment section below as far as the part cooling fans that have worked for me, it's done a pretty good job. Now, the purpose of buying the printer was to print big. Obviously, the project I'm working on right now is my BB-8 build. Really need to start cranking out some large pieces, and unfortunately the FT-5 has kind of failed me in that regard. Now, I'll give it credit. I mean, I'm getting, if I'm not using the entire bed, if I'm just using a smaller like 8x8 portion of it, I am getting some very good prints. I mean, some that actually rival my Ultimaker and are right up there with the CR-10. About every 9th or 10th print, I'm getting one that has a little bit of like a Y shift in there, and I haven't been able to determine exactly what's causing that, because it will happen once, I'll try it again with the same G code, and it'll print just fine. So this printer requires a tremendous amount of tinkering and observation, and it can do some things really, really well, but unfortunately, the reason that I bought it was to print large. It can't do that. Now, the reason for that, I suspect, is that this bed, I think, is warped. Again, I would like to get an aluminum one from 713 Maker, or I don't know who else. I know there's the upgrade path for the FT-5R2 if I wanted to go that way, but I've tried several things to try to alleviate the problem. I put a bigger mirror on here. I used different bed surfaces. I tried lock build out, because lock build wants to be a little further away from the nozzle in order to get the print to stick. You don't want it to squish it on, but you want a little bit more distance. So I thought maybe that extra distance would be, accommodated by the warpiness of my bed. That hasn't worked too well. I went with PEI. PEI has worked superbly for the smaller prints, but again, for big stuff, I'm still having troubles with the whole bed leveling, because I can level the bed, but it's just you go round and round and round and you're just always adjusting. One of the things that drive me crazy about this bed is I'm not using the stock springs anymore because they're just way too wimpy. There is a piece of cork under the aluminum bed to insulate for the heat, but I have gone from different lengths of spring just to add a little bit more, tensioning, a little bit more distance between the bed and the bed surface itself, hoping that maybe the bigger springs would give me that little bit of play I need to get good bed clearance. But again, it eludes me. And I'll be honest, printers that use these binder clips kind of drive me crazy. This printer wants 000 to be in the far corner. All my other printers are in the front corner. I'm sure there's something in the Marlin firmware that can fix that. I just haven't figured it out yet. The other thing is with the control board is you're always moving in reverse. I've searched high and low in the firmware how to make it normal, but that's kind of failed me. Uploading to the firmware is an adventure in itself. You have to go through a few save and clears for the new firmware to go. It's just, everything about this printer has been a freaking adventure. This is not the kind of printer that I can typically put the SD code into, push print, and just walk away and know that it'll be fine. I tend to have to babysit this one a little bit more than the other printers I have. Now, I do have some video of some of the really good prints that I've gone through, and here they are. Hey guys, while you're here, I just want to point out that if you like the content I'm creating and you want to help me out, I have created a donation link on the homepage on YouTube. What you can do is you can click on that, and if you want to make a donation to me, you can do so. If you want to make a monthly donation where it'll be a subscription and goes right through PayPal, feel free to do so. I thank you. Okay, so that's kind of a summary of the FT-5, and you're probably wondering, well, who's this printer for? Who's the best audience to purchase and buy one of these things? Well, first of all, it's definitely an intermediate kit. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of small pieces, and unless you have a lot of background 3D printing and you're comfortable with that, I would say fine, go for it. But if you already have built a printer in the past and you're comfortable with taking on this one, because there's a lot involved, absolutely. But definitely, this is not for a beginner. I wouldn't throw this at a beginner because it's very frustrating. The price, I gotta be honest, at $4.99, you're kind of entering the same price range as a CR-10S that can actually print the same size and a little bit bigger. I like the idea that this printer is a great big rectangle, and if I want to put panels here, I can seal it up. But honestly, I think you'd be better served with a CR-10 just because of the reliability. So those are my thoughts on the FT-5. What do you think? Please, by all means, place a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think. What's your experience been? The interesting thing that I have run into is I've seen some of these that are built, people slap it together very, very comfortably actually, and they get some great, really good prints out of these things. But I know some very smart people who are engineering minds. They've built other printers and they've had no issues. I know a couple people that have two of these things, and they've built them and they've had terrible luck with reliability, and they've just shelved them and moved on to something else. So that kind of seems to be my observation anyway from the FT-5 community, is that some folks get this thing together rather easily and some people have nothing but issues, and that seems to be where I fall. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember, you can find us on social media. Here's our links over here. And I thank you for watching. Remember, this is where nerdy is cool.